All right, let me share my screen. Thank you all for joining. I am going to be talking about object-oriented programming using PHP. Just to clarify, where's my notes? There will still be a general class that talks about just object-oriented programming as a concept, not relating to a specific language. The fact that this is coming before that might be a bit of a disadvantage, but I will try my best to just be as slow as possible. But you can always stop me, which is why I wanted as many people as possible to be on the call so that you can always stop me and ask questions if I'm going too fast, if I am not explaining something properly. However, I will not be doing things like defining the concept. Like I will not be telling you what is a constructor. I will not be defining it for you. And that's why I have this note opened. I will do my best to touch all these concepts here practically. So then you can go over the notes and, check the concept, check the definition yourself and try and combine the two knowledge, the definition, the concepts, and the practical side that I will be showing you now. So I will just be diving straight in and working on a very simple project that allows me to show you certain concepts that I have come to learn working with PHP almost every day for the last couple of years. Another disclaimer I should put out there is I personally have certain ways of doing things, which it's not wrong, it's not bad, it's just the way I do things. Okay. And then I'm not trying to teach you to do it exactly the way I do it. I'm just trying to introduce you to certain concepts, and you can make a decision on how you want to apply the concept on your own projects, on your own assignment. One of the main advantages of what we do as developers is there is hardly ever a single way to do things effectively and efficiently. Okay, if somebody tells you this is the only way to do it effectively or efficiently, I mean, I've never really seen anybody that will claim that before, but if somebody does say that, I would be very skeptical about the person's skill set, because there's always a better way or a different way to do things. And sometimes those ways are just a matter of preference. And which is something we also have to learn to identify as developers or as somebody who's going to be leading a team sometime in future. You don't want the people that work under you as a team leader to to be judged based on your own preference. Okay, you want to be judged. You want to judge them based on the effectiveness of their work, not based on your own preference. If there is a problem with their code, you want to judge them based on that problem, not, oh, well, I would have prefer you use a for loop here instead of this kind of loop because I just prefer using for loop for issues like this without any data backing your preference. Okay, so I would be doing things the way I prefer to do it, but I don't want you to take it in a, what's the word, like a dogmatic way. I'm not trying to teach you to just do it exactly the way I do it. You just try as much as possible to get the concept, ask questions that helps you to understand the concept better, and then in your own time apply those concepts in your own way. All right, so I would be going through most of these things. I've checked the list. I think I'll touch almost everything here based on the project I've selected to work on. And you can go through these notes. It's just on W3 Schools, and you can use that as a guide for yourself. You can open it now or you can open it later. Either way is fine. Okay, so I would be working with PHP Storm. Let's just go to distraction-free mode. Where is that button? So I can't find the button. Anyway, I'll be working with PHP Storm. That's my preference, but you can use any IDE that you prefer. I will start a new project because this is going to be a new project, so to say. I'll call it PHP OOP concepts. Let's just call it that. Let's take that out. So while my project is being created, we have already sort of introduced you to basic concept of object-oriented programming with an assignment to follow along, but the assignment was probably just MCQ assignment, so you couldn't really practice what you've learned, so to say. But you've already been using PHP and you understand what PHP is at this point. You've done procedural programming, you've understood what procedure is, you've possibly seen some limitations and how it is difficult to actually reuse your code in a very flexible and maintainable manner. Object-oriented programming becomes very important when you want to work on much larger projects and when you want to work on project that involves multiple teams and multiple components. You don't want to write functions and just use the function everywhere. You want to actually be able to create things that has their own properties and functionalities. And then you want to be able to use those things in different places, and the functionalities and properties become available in wherever you decide to use them. So that's basically what object-oriented programming allows us to achieve. I'm going to be creating a single file here just to start with. Let's call it index.php. Right, I would start my PHP project this way. Let me make this bigger so it's clear to everybody. Is this the button? I always forget the button to make things bigger. Just guys, give me a minute to figure that out. Increase font is, yeah, there we go. Okay, I think I found it. Yeah. All right, I think this is big enough so you can even see it on your mobile phone. Right, so we are going to be learning to use object-oriented programming to develop applications, practical sense of it. So what I will be doing is sort of mimicking what happens in a registration process. Okay. So a few things that you expect to happen is we collect data from users. So we have specific information that we require from the user for them to be able to register on a platform. So we expect that specificity from the user. Okay. And what that means is if you ask the user to register on a form, say on a website, you have your form will have a couple of fields in there and a button for them to actually submit the things they've entered. You require a specific range of information to be sent. So if somebody cannot just add their own information to that form and try to register on your platform, it has to be within the limits of what you have requested for. For example, if you say, okay, I want the first name to always be a string and no number at all. Let's wrap this. All right, there we go. So I want the first name to be string alone, no numbers. That's specificity. You are being specific as to what you want the users to send to you. I want the phone number, if I can type number, phone number to be, digit alone, integer. Yeah, let's say integer, and allow the plus sign and this for extensions. So this is also specific, even though it allows a bit more. It's not just a wide net of only numbers or only strings. So that's what I mean by you expect a specific information from the user. The problem when you're dealing with user is, regardless of anything that you expect or the information you have put on your form or anything you have told them to provide, you never trust user input. Never trust user input. So this is one of the core things I learned the hard way as a back-end developer. You never trust the user input. You always assume there is one random person out there who decided to upload a file instead of just entering their first name. You have to assume that there is somebody there who is going to write phone number instead of email address, who's going to write email address instead of first name or last name, or who's going to write street address instead of email address. There's always somebody who's going to put in the wrong thing into your form or send the wrong thing to your API endpoint. So what you do as a backend developer is to guide your endpoint or your backend processing code to only accept the specific things you have requested from the user, and anything else they send to you should return an error, should not be accepted. So you have a sort of filter, like in biology they call it like a semi-permeable filter, something that can select what comes in and what is not allowed to come in, like we have in the human kidney. All right, so that's the concept. That concept is most of the time called validation. So basically, that's what I've been explaining since. That's the English I've been speaking. Anyway, so we call that validation. So we'll be expecting some sort of information from the user. We'll be validating the information they've sent to us. We'll be checking it that it meets our own criteria, and then we'll be either allowing it to go through or sending back a bunch of errors. Okay. And then what else do we do during registration? Apart from collecting the information, we validate the information. We then enter the information. Actually, before we do that, we could do some transform the data to the correct format. So because there are different ways of saving information into the database, so you have to make sure you are saving it in the right format. One example would be when you work with MySQL, you cannot send null. Sorry, that would be, I think it's lowercase or uppercase. I can't remember. But you cannot send null or this null as a field value. You have to make it empty or something like that. So you need to transform the data you've collected that you validated. You need to transform it to the correct format that needs to be saved in your database. Another example would be if you say your first name should only be strings, and somebody enters a first name that is, although a string, but it's too long to be a first name. Your transformation process would also be a form of another level of validation where you say, okay, I couldn't transform this your particular first name to the right number of bits. So I have to send it back to you to say, look, this is way too long for my database. I've only requested for, 15 characters for first name. You've sent me like 200 characters. I need you to send me 15 characters. So that is why this is important. All right. So lastly, we then put the information in the database. Now, our database could be anything. In our own case, it would likely just be a file. I don't know what I'll use next, but it will likely just be a file. We'll just, create a new file when we save the user information. So this is what we are going to be mimicking, and I'll be doing my best to just use as much object-oriented concepts as possible. Okay. Does anybody have any questions right now based on everything I've said, or should I just keep going? All right, I'll keep going then. Hopefully you guys are still listening. All right. So let's get started. Let's start with what kind of information we need from the user. Let's say we need a first name. We need last name. Why am I even doing why am I doing this? Let's do it in a more professional way. So we need first name, if I can spell name, last name, let's say email address, and then phone number. And what else can we use? Yeah, I think this will be fine. So we are requesting the user to give us their first name, their last name, their email address, or let's say password also. So I can show you Ashen. That would be important also, I guess. Right. So this is everything that we need from the user. Now, think of the user as an object. So you are creating a new user object in your system. And you have said, for me to be able to create a new user object, I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things to be able to create a new user object. You could also say, well, I could use 5 things, but only like 4 of them are very important. So you could say, well, first name is required, email is required, phone number is required, and password is required. But you could decide not to give me your last name. I'll be fine with that. I can still create a new user object if you don't give me the last name. Now imagine the user, imagine a normal human being. Okay, you need 2 things for you to form a new human being, to create a new human being. You need a male and a female. So be able to create, you need these 2 people, these 2 things to come together to be able to create a new human being. That's basically what we're saying. We're saying for me to create a new user object in my system, I need this information from you to create a new user object. So let's say I can now say something like new user, and I can say For me to create a new user, I need to provide first name, last name, and all of this other information that my system has decided to automatically fill in. Okay. Basically, this is a new person. This is a new user. So person is this. Uh, person two, let's use actual name. Let's say Bola is this. Dollar. This is a new person. So we've created two people now using the same defined structure to create them. This is one of the advantages of using object-oriented program, because now I can imagine what a user should normally be able to do. Okay, a normal user should be able to move their hand, move their leg, and so on and so forth. But in our own case, we could say something like, well, what do I want my user to be able to do? I want them to be able to change their name, change name. I want them to be able to change their phone number. And I also want them to be able to change password. So it means Tola is a new user that has been created. It means now Tola has all these functionalities, so to say, because Tola is a new user that has been created. Just like a normal human being, when you give birth to a person, has a couple of properties, a couple of functions, things they can just do normally. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and create a new user, new class, and say user. So this is what we've done. We've now said, for me to have a new user, I need a couple of things from you. I need the first name, which is a string. Okay, I need the last name. I need the email. Yes. I need the phone, and I need the password. Phone in the real sense should also be a string. I'm going to add something else. I'm going to add age, because phone should also be a string. Um, Zoom is blocking my view. Okay. So now I've defined age also. So let's add age. Right. So if your IDE works like mine and you get this error thing here, it just means you're writing the wrong version of PHP. Like at the moment I'm writing PHP 5.6. So I'm going to increase that to write PHP, I don't know, 8.2, I guess. Yeah. So I'm going to write PHP 8.2 because that's more recent. Well, let's just make it 8.3. There are a couple of differences. One difference you'll have noted now is the fact that at PHP 5.0, I can't define the specific type of data that I expect my first name to be, because at that point PHP was not a typed language. But now, we can define the type of, whatever I want it to be. Now, let me move on. So we could also, this is supposed to be an integer. Obviously, an age cannot be a float. It has to be an integer. We could also say, I would like my phone number to be either a string or an integer. That's not the normal thing, by the way. Phone number is always, string, because you don't do any calculation on phone numbers. But this pipe here means this phone number could be a string or an integer. That works, right? Now, to create a new user, we've said that we need all this information to create a new user. As you have seen here, what I have done is I have passed the requested information directly into the user object, which is one way to do it. Okay. At this point, Bola is already a new user because I already said new. I've already created a user class, and I've said Bola is a new user. Let's delete all of this so it doesn't keep confusing me. And I've already said Bola is a new user. But at this point, new user doesn't do anything. It doesn't even set anything. There's nothing it does. So if I were to go back and attempt to print out Bola now on my screen, let's just see what Bola looks like. Oh, by the way, I should have mentioned this. There's an inbuilt PHP ID server that you can use. I think it's PHP s localhost, and then I'll define my, yep, that's correct. So that helps me to just test my code very quickly, which is one way I could test it, but I don't need to check my browser right now because I could just run my PHP code directly from here and say PHP index.php. Oh yeah, I get an error, obviously. Yeah, okay. So I need to import this guy and include it here somewhere. So let's just bring it in here and say require once. No, thank you. I don't want to auto load yet. We've not got it to that point. So let's just load user in there. Okay, so the user is now available. And now if I try running this code again, it shouldn't give me that error anyway. Right. So you see that even though Bola is a new user is actually an empty object. Although I have already defined certain properties inside the user class itself, but it's still empty because I've not set anything to those properties. So a user class itself, it's useless if you don't actually set anything in it. Okay, so let's start setting things in it. Let's do method one. Method one, I'm going to use the constructor. Okay, scroll down. Now let's go into our class and create the constructor. This is my constructor function or method, whichever English you prefer. And in there, I would say, okay, I require public. You know, I'll just move these guys in there. Oh, yeah, this is method one, right? Yeah, this is method one. I could also copy all of this. Sometimes I do things like a novice. All right, so I can move all of that in there, move this forward, select you, select you, select you, and you, and you, and you, and change that. And now we should be fine if I delete all of this. Now, I mean, from like PHP, I think 7, you can do this. This exactly is the same thing as this that I have here. So I'm going to delete all of this. What we have basically said is that for me to create a new user, I need all of this information to be provided. And now I can go back in here and pass those data. You can see it's already saying that, you know, the required parameters to create a new user. I can go in here and sort of set, you know, the things I want. I think the first name, let's define things also. Let's say we are creating Shei as a user, last name, my last name, and I'm going to move this down. Okay. I'm going to add my email address and say shei@email.com. That's not my correct email, by the way. Okay, my phone number, which also is going to be a string. I'm just going to say a random piece of phone number. My age, I'm going to say I'm quite old, 98. And then my password is going to be also password. By the way, this should not be this way, this should be 98. Okay, so now I have set that I want a new user to be created, and my new user has said, okay, all the information that needs to be used to create a new user has been defined in the constructor. The constructor is the method that runs every time a new instance of this particular thing is created. So every time you create a new instance of the user, this code will run. But although there's nothing inside here, but this will still run. Okay, I'll show you that shortly. So let's go back to here and try to print out Bola again. Okay, you can interrupt me if you have a question, but I'll just keep going. Right, now you see that Bola has actual objects inside it because I have defined the things that I want this user to have as a person. So that's method one. Okay, I will comment all of this out. And now we will try to create Bola with method two. Okay, I should move this up here. Method one is using the constructor to set the required parameters to create a new object. Method two, but we could say chaining. Sorry, I use chaining a lot, but just not in this kind of situation. But let me explain what that means. I'm going to revert back to what I had earlier. Let's just do a couple of undos. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm going to delete the constructor, totally delete the constructor. And then I'm going to uncomment all of this. Now I will say public function run. Just go along with me as I try to create a couple of functions, but just try and follow me along. I'm going to say run the create new user function. And I'm going to say return this. I'm going to be static. Right. Let's do another one. Public function user first name. And this will just set the first name. And obviously, this is not going to be that. All right. Which is going to come from here. Okay, so this will set the first name. Is that a typo here? Okay, unused, that's fine. And I'm going to do public function last name. Thank you, AI. Okay, that's my last name. This is going to return self also. And it's going to be static. And it's going to be a static. And it's going to return itself. I forgot to add the return statement here. So let me show you what this is before I do too much typing. All right, let's say set first name, say here, sets the last name. Okay. All right, so let's go back here. And now to create a new user, I need to do a bit more than what I've done before. I'm going to say Bola equals, that's not bold, Bola equals new user. And now, instead of doing what I did before, I have to now specifically call the things that I want to do. I will say first name that I want to give to Bola is Shay. I will say last name is Onifade. Let's put this down. You know what? Let's put this down. And then I will say run it. I don't actually need the run statement as far as I see it now. Yeah, I don't actually need the run thing. But we could do other things in the run. I'm going to delete it for now. Okay, so what we have done is the second method that I would be showing you is you could create a new object and then specifically set the names, the things that you want for the objects. Okay, in which case I'm going to just duplicate these other guys and quickly do the rest and say email, email, email. I should have just copied this. Anyway, and then I'll say, I think we have phone. I'll copy this, do a bit of this, and do a bit of that, and then add my symbol in there. Okay, so we've set name, we've set email, we've set, let's set age also. Why not? Let's set age, copy this, do this, and then add that in there. Okay, I think one more thing that we need to set would likely be password. Okay, password, the password, and then this will go in there. Password. Hopefully, I'm going a bit fast enough so that we can get to a reasonable point today. Yeah, so we've been able to create all of that. Now I can now set all of my properties by doing what I've been doing. I can say age is 98. I can say, what else have we not set? Email, I think. Email is email, let's say .com. I can say, so let's set password now. If I say password is password, I think that's all, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Phone.
Phone, yeah, thank you. I can also set phone and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 10. All right, I'm going to make it a string. Yeah. All right, moving on. So if I print Bola now this method is fine. So it seems cleaner, okay? But this also works. So let's print Bola out using our terminal again. And yeah, Bola still prints out properly. This is the first one, and this is the new Bola that I just created now with the phone number and everything in place. So that's method 2. There is one more method I could show you. Yep, we have all of these, all of these, all of these, all of these. So let's just be sure that everything is still working well. Let's print out Bola again. Let's clear our terminal, print out Bola again, and Bola is still working fine. Now, let me show you the problem with users. Sometimes we just don't trust user input. I'm going to use the email to show you. Right now, our object has no idea that this is not a valid email, even though even if we define that this is supposed to be a string and define that this is supposed to be a string, we'll change this here and also say this should be a string. Let's just say what they are supposed to be. Oh, this should be a string, definitely a string. Okay, string. Now, at this point, our system does not know this is an invalid email. It doesn't know if this password is, insecure, if it's secure or not. So which will bring me to the next thing I'll be showing you, which is the concept of using, validating user input. All right, let's create a new class. We call it validator. It's a new class. It's called validator. Okay, and we are just going to be checking a couple of things. Let's start with checking strings. Public function is string. This is the easiest one. So this is just going to be checking if whatever we've sent to it is a valid string. Number one point of validation would be actually adding string here. So if this is not a string, if they said like, for example, an array, it's going to throw an error. This is easy, return a string. So we'll just basically be checking, is it a string or not? And moving on from there. If it's not a string, we stop. But we also want to check if it's a specific character, if it's like 10 counts. So our default would be minimum of 10 or maximum of 10. Yeah, maximum of 10. So we are checking, is it a string and is the is the length of the string greater than this? So we are saying the mark, it should be less than, or equal to. So basically we are saying, is this a valid string? And is the length of the string less than or equal to 10? If these two conditions are true, then this function will return true. Okay. If either one of them is not true, this will be false, which is what our validation is supposed to do. So this would be a Boolean returned, going to return a Boolean. I don't know why this is saying there is something here, but I'm not going to remove it because I want to show you that. Okay. So let's use our validator in here in our user class. I'm going to extend it. I'm going to say extend validator. I mean, hopefully that works because I don't have any namespace defined yet, but let's see if it works. And then I'm going to say, before I set this, I'm going to say this, yeah, a string. So I'm going to check if it's not a string, what is going on? Okay, if it's not a string, I'm going to say return invalid string, invalid input, I guess. This is returning static. If it's a string, we are going to set it and then return that. All right, let me try and explain what I've done because my head is working, but my mouth is not working fast enough. Okay, so we've created a validator class we're going to be using it to check the user input. We are using it in the first name method. We are checking if the first name they've sent to us meets the criteria we have set for the first name. In this case, we are saying, is it a string and is it not more than 10 characters? If that is the case, then we're going to be setting it in there. Now, what happens if that is not the case? We need to inform the users there is an error, right? So I'm going to create a new public array errors. And then I'm going to use that in here. So if this statement is true, I'm going to set it. But if the statement is not true, let's just add an else in here. I'm going to say this errors, create a new array, first name error, invalid, first name, or two shots. That's now the spell shot. Right. So I've done this. I'm going back to here. So now that I've tried to create a new user, I can then say something like, well, if it sets let's not use it, set, let's say empty bola errors, then print out bola, otherwise else print out the errors. What? Okay, array to string conversion, let's print the raw. That should be fine now. Let's make things, yeah, that's fine. So basically what I've done is I have a validator class I'm supposed to check, validate things a little bit. And I have in my user function, in my user class, I'm using the validator to check if the supplied information is correct. If it is correct, I'm going to proceed to do things normally. If it is not correct, I'm going to return this error right here. And then when using the user object, I'm going to check if there are any errors. If there are no errors, I'm going to print out. If there are errors, I'm going to, print out the errors. Let's try it now and see if everything is fine. By the way, this is going to also include the error property, but let's see. Let's clear this. Print bola out. Yeah, I knew it was not going to be a problem. Okay, so I'll show you how to fix this later, but I'll just for now, bring that in here and say require validator.php. That should solve this problem right now, but that's a bad way to solve it. Show you a better way to solve it. Now, there are no errors because actually this is a string and it's not more than 10 characters. But let's try and trigger an error for this guy and just add a bunch of other things in there. Save that and then try to print it out again. And now we see first name, invalid first name, or too long. It should be too long, not too short. Anyway, but you get what the point, too long. So now we've validated our input. We've been able to return an error to the user and the user knows the problem. But this is a very inefficient way to undo this. I think the validator should be the one to just do everything instead of us doing it inside here. So we should just be able to pass the information to the validator and say, look, this is everything the user has given to me. Validate it and tell me where the errors are. So let's go back to our validator and bring the error array here. Okay. And then we are going to do a check here first. If say valid is this, and say if valid, if not valid, let's say if not valid, return false. But before we return it, we're going to be setting the actual error that is not valid. And say, I don't know, string. The problem is we need to also define the actual field, but it's fine. I'm going to say string and say the field, yeah, let's set the field here so I can print out a more proper error message and say string field eld. Let's terminate this. Let's okay, yeah, that's an optional parameter, so it should be here. Okay, so I'm going to say in here, I'm going to say field and IELD, the okay, let's say the must be a string and at least not more than 10. Yes. Okay, sorry, I just wanted to print out the proper thing there. Let's wrap this. Okay, so the field must be a string and not more than 10 characters. This is still a bit now the user is confused. They don't know which one is the problem. It's not specific enough, so I want to make it more specific. To do that, I'm going to just split this and say if, okay, I'm going to split that, just so that the feedback is as specific as possible, and the user knows exactly what is wrong. Let's split this and say if this is not a string, we are then going to say this must be a string, and I'll remove all of this and put that here, comment it, and then I'll copy this, put that there, move this here. Now I can move this and say the field must not be, I think, must not be more than 10 characters. Okay, so now we have something more specific for the user. And if everything is fine, we just return true. Obviously from here, we have to return false. From here, which is still weird, honestly. But I'll see how we can make it cleaner because now we have about 3 return statements, which is not ideal. But I'll see how we can make it, much more better as we proceed. But anyway, now this guy has already validated and has set the errors. So let's go back to the user and see how we can use that now. Okay, now this requires a couple of more parameters. Now say, okay, our user should be 10 characters at least. Sorry, the field is first name, and it should be like, let's say 10 characters also, in which case we don't need to add it there because we already set the defaults to be 10. So now we're saying, if this is a string, set it. Now we don't need to do this anymore. We don't need to have this here anymore because we are doing that inside the validator class already. If this is an error, set that. And surprisingly, the user still has access to the error property because the user is extending the validator and the validator has the error property, which is a public property. So the user still has access to that. That means if I go back here and run this code now, I should still see the error message because the user still has access to this. Okay, hopefully, let's see. All right, let's clear this. Try it again. And I still see, I see an error message that says the first name must not be more than 10 characters because here it's 10 characters. If I do go back and try to make this like so, I'll probably get an exception here and not my clean error. So let's try and do one more validation because we are let's do the string, the email validation. I'll move this down I'll close this block of code, and then we'll just do the public function is email validation here. We'll take the email, which will return Boolean. And I think we'll be using, the inbuilt function that that PHP allows us to use, which is this function here. We pass the email in there. We say, just check if it's a valid email. Let's quickly test that out with this. I'll go to my email function. I will use my validator that like I've used here. And change this to email. Change this to email. Also change this and change this. Okay. It's email validating that. And then I will go back here. I think there's a problem here. We need to actually return the error. So if this is not a valid email, set the error. And also we need to pass the field here. And that should be fine. Return true. Otherwise, return false. If not. All right, let's test this out. It's a wrong email. The first name is fine. Let's try to print out Bola now. Okay, the email must be a valid email address. If I add a problem with this, maybe I had a bit more. If I had a problem with this, and I still get the email is not a valid email address. If I had a valid email address and run the code again, is this not more than 10? I think this is more than 10. There's likely a slight problem with the validation again. Let's check that. That has to work. So if the length is less than or equal to the thing that we've set, it should throw this error. Okay. String. Let's see, maybe it definitely is more than 10. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then yes, more than 10. That should give me an error. This should not be empty. Means there's something wrong with the validation. So if it is not a string, if it is, oh my God. If it is less than or equal to 10, if it is not less than, okay. So if it is greater than, that's my fault. If it is greater than, yeah, this should be the correct thing. All right, let's try that again. All right, we've gotten that error. Let's do this. We should have 2 errors now. Yep, now we have 2 errors. We have the email field that has an error. The first name must not be more than 10 characters. The email must be a valid email address. Yeah, we could basically apply the same thing to the rest. We could create, validation for each of them and validate them separately. The email is probably the easiest one to validate. But you could also validate the phone, the age thing. Yeah, very easy to do, just like we've done for this guy here. And then we can return true and return false. So we're validating that is this an actual integer? Must be an integer. If it's not an integer, we'll pass the error to them. We go in here to the age bit and add our validation. Somewhere here is integer, age, age, and age, and age. All right, let's run this again. All right, so we've got the first name and blah blah, all of that is still fine. Let's go back and enter something that is not, a valid age. Hello.
Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. Let's just run through the things that we have for today. Uh, 1
Okay,
minute.
sorry, do I send a quick reminder on the platform just in case?
Hmm. Okay, let me just do it. Yeah, I guess people are busy with the house things. I have not been able to do the edit I promised on the other video. I hope to be able to do it today. And thankfully, um, Monday is the bank holiday, so like a public holiday. So I should be able to get some more work done over the weekend. It's a long weekend. Right, let's quickly try and keep
Okay,
struggling.
sorry. Sorry,
Go.
did you say Monday is a public holiday? This Monday?
Yeah, where I am right now, it is not.
Oh, okay, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, I think May 1st was public holiday in Nigeria, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, so it's like uh, a few days apart. Um,
Oh, okay, okay.
yeah, okay, so let me share my screen. Let's okay. Zoom keeps getting in the way every time you want to do something. It just gets in the way. It's quite annoying. Okay. All right, let's start by fixing the problem we had in the last class, which is trying to use the auto load and load the things that we need in there. As a little bit of recap, so what we've done is to define an auto load parameter in our composer.json, specify the files that we want to auto load, and they are these files right here. And now we need to actually call the auto load thing, which is inside the vendor folder in the root directory, which I defined up here. Uh, let's clean this up a little bit. Okay, so clean. So I'm going back to using, you know what, let's delete all of this and just be a bit more focused. Okay, let's do print our print our user and see what I get. Okay, let's clear this and try it out. So this is the error we're getting. Class is not found in this. So it can't find the validator class. It should find it, but it says it can't find it. So let's find out why. It's called validator. Um, the namespace is app. Should we do this? Because that would then mean I have to now re-import this as this, which doesn't make much sense. So I think I already have this. I wonder why it's not finding it. I have no idea why. Mm, But if this was not there, can I then do this? Oh, cool. So it actually finds this, but not that. So let's see if I have my validator here also, and print out a new validator class name. And let's see what we get. Okay, cool. All right. So last time we had a conversation, we created two main classes. We created the validator class, which is to help us sort of validate the information that the user gives us. Let's make this bigger, get this bigger. Okay. So validate the information that the user gives to us. So we've defined the string validation. We've defined the its email validation and its integer validation. So those are the things we'll be defining for now. We have the user class, which I have decided to go back to using the constructor method instead of doing this. So I will delete all of this. I'll delete all of this. Okay, and I'll create the constructor. I'll delete all of this also. I'll create the constructor. Actually, I shouldn't have deleted that. I could just copy it over. So I'll create the constructor, copy all this over, and so this creates a new user. Let's test that out. So in here, we can say person equals to user. Um, use the new user keyword, and then I'll pass the parameters in there. Say, I actually do prefer doing this. User password. Okay, that should create a new user for us. I think we need to rearrange this. Email from age. Okay, age is missing. Age 98. Okay, that's fine then. Let's print that out and see what we have when we do that. Okay, so we have that. The new user has been created with this information. All of that is fine. I want to create a new thing called helper.php, which is something that I sort of learned from I think Laravel. So what we are going to implement will be certain functions. So this will just be a var variable. I'm going to show you what I'm trying to do in a few minutes. Hopefully it works. I don't trust that everything will work well. Okay. And then we'll do var variable in there. So we can always have this available to us. When we do debugging things. So I don't have to do print every time. We could use helper. Did I define namespace? I think I did. Let me check. Okay, I did. Cool. So we have our helper there. Now I can say up here I can say helper to be new helper, and then helper ed would be person. Yeah, it just sort of makes things a bit easier for me. And ooh, doesn't work. Oh yeah, I have to composer dump auto load, sort of reload the files that are being loaded, but still a problem. Okay, Let's go and figure out why. Namespace is fine. Called it there, created a new one here. Uncaught exception class is not found in that. Yeah, if you suddenly be found. Okay. Oh, I don't think I've loaded the file. So let's go and load it in here. helper.php. And now I can sort of reload everything. Composer, load. And let's run the code again. Yep, now all is fine. Helper print it out in a sort of fancy manner. All right, let's close this. We will leave this here for now. We could add other things in there later, but we'll just leave it there for now. I'll delete this comment. I'll leave that the way it is. Yeah, so we have a new user. We have this validating. So let's apply the validation here. Validate user inputs. We'll change this to be data. Let's call it user input to be equal to array of whatever the user is sending to us. Just bear with me as I clean this up a little bit. There we go. All right. So I have my user input. That's the data coming from the user. I'm going to validate it. Let's create a new validator up here. Validator to be equal to a new validator. And then I will say if validator think errors, helper print the errors out. Otherwise, go ahead to do this. Now let's modify our helper a little bit. Make sure that when the error is printed out, it exits. It doesn't go ahead to, try and perform the other things that are in the function. Let me try and explain that. So after I validate this information and I find some errors in there and I'm printing out the error, if I don't exit the code here, you could also use die, by the way. If I don't stop the code here, it would print out the errors and then go ahead and create the user anyway. So we don't want that. Also, I'm not really much of a fan of using else statement. So yeah, I would leave it this way for now. Let's see why this is throwing this out. It says must be initialized before applied. That's fine. If empty, if not empty, let's say if not empty. If it's not empty, then go ahead to print it out and the error is gone. So let's validate the user data. Sorry about all the zooming and zooming out. It's just Zoom keeps blocking my view. Okay, so I will just do some manual validations here and say ready data to be an empty string, sorry, an empty array. So I'm going to validate each of these. If it is valid, I'm going to put it in here. If it's not valid, I'm going to, just dump it and let the error stuff handle it itself. So that at the end of the day, this would be using the ready data to create a new user. Okay, at the moment it's empty, so obviously we get this error. But let's go ahead and do that. First, we start by validating user name, first name. So this would be like how your, what post looks like when somebody posts a new information to you. This is what it basically. I'm just trying to sort of mock that concept. So as just in your mind, just assume this is a post request that is sent to this particular page. What it will look like when they send it, it will be something like first name and so on and so forth to access the global variable post. But I'm just doing this here not to have to go through creating a form and showing you how to do that. Okay, so for first name, I'm going to fetch the first name equal to, now, I'll try as much as possible to explain what I'm trying to do. So ready information, first name, don't need this, will be equal to validator string user input first name. Let's close this so that you can see. Let's see if I can make it bigger. Yep, there we go. User input first name must be first name field and must be at least must not be more than, let's say, I don't know, 15 characters. So if this is the case, if it is a string, if it is not more than 15 characters, then we are going to just say it is first name. Otherwise, we are going to set this as null. Okay. Hopefully this makes sense. So I am assigning the result of this particular expression to ready data first name. I'm saying validate the first name that was sent by the user post request. Check if the first name they have sent is a string. Check if it is not more than 15 characters. By the way, this should be 15. 15 characters. If it is not more than 15 characters and it is a string, then that's a valid first name that we want to work with. Otherwise, then there is no first name in this particular instance. Okay. And now that you understand what that is, I'm going to just basically duplicate this and apply that here, here. Oh, my fault. Here, 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 and save that. Also, last name should be 15 characters. We'll leave it that way. I would also create a new one and email. Right, so email is a bit different, but the concept will likely be the same. So its email address is a valid email. The field is email. We don't need the length here. It's email and set to email. Yep. So it's basically the same thing. This is possibly one of the most important things about object-oriented programming. So you write it once and you can basically use it everywhere and anywhere you want. I might be able to show you another project that is currently live that I worked on. It was a project I inherited, so I couldn't, I didn't want to restart from afresh, and it was already a pure PHP program project. If I had my way, I would have used a framework because an actual live project requires a lot of things. It doesn't make sense to dedicate time to writing it afresh when you can use a framework to solve all that problem. So I might be able to show you some of the things I had to do in that project as we proceed. So you can write the class once. You can take your time to really flesh out the class and make sure it does what you want it to do and just use it everywhere. That's one of the big advantages of object-oriented programming. All right, so we've done email. Let's do phone number, which is a bit more interesting. I mean, not really interesting. It's just a string anyway, so I don't think it's that interesting. But we would say it has to be 11 characters, not 15 this time, because Nigerian phone numbers are mostly 11 characters. So anything more than that is not accepted. You know what? Just in case somebody decides to add postcode, call code in there, whatever they call it. So I will make it so 11 plus 3 plus 1, that's 15. Oh no, I don't want to do 15. So let's make it 16. And that's because I've already done 15 earlier. So again, let's do this. So this will be age. This will be age. Age is not a string, it is an integer. And so for the integer out, actually, we could say minimum of, yeah, let's do that. We could say has to be a minimum of, certain number. So I could then add that if it is a string and int is greater than or equal to minimum. Basically, I'm saying, so I'm not able to check if the integer is actually a minimum of a certain amount, or it could be no. By the way, yeah, I think that would be better to make it default no. By default, we don't check for minimum. But if I do specifically set the minimum, then I want to check for the minimum. In which case, I would have to do it in here and say, if it's not empty, if minimum is not empty, that means yeah, I'm supposed to check for minimum. And return true if return integer is greater than or equal to the minimum. That's otherwise return true. So let me try and walk you through this. We are modifying the integer validation. We are modifying it a little bit. We're adding one more parameter in here. In the past, it was just checking if it's an integer, and if it is, the field, it doesn't really do much anyway. But now we're adding a minimum requirement in there, which is optional, an optional parameter that it can pass into this validator here. We are currently checking if it's an integer. This is just a pure PHP thing. We are not doing anything here. We're just asking it to do its thing. But then when this passes, we want to check one more thing. We want to check if this is defined. If it is defined, then we use that also to judge if integer passes all the requirements of this particular method here. And the second requirement is that it must be at least this particular minimum here. And this statement here is saying, is this greater than or equal to this? If that is true, this returns true. If it is not true, it returns false. It's just an easy way to write this instead of doing, if statement or whatever in here. Now, if we are not checking for minimum requirement, it means automatically this thing already passes because it is an integer for it to get in here. If it's not an integer, it's going to throw this error. And yeah, that's, we are using a try catch here, which I forgot to import, by the way. Let's go import it here also. This is what is this exception here? I think it's type error also. Yeah, because it's not the correct type. That's fine. I think do we need to do anything here? Nothing. We're not trying catching this. All right, cool. Okay, so that's what I've done there. I'm going to close the helper for now. So we are checking if it is the age they've given us, it's an integer. And now we are going to say, you have to be at least 17 years old before you can create an account on our platform. That's why we added that. We change this to age, and that is that. I'm going to write one more. Let's finish this. This is not neat at all. Sorry, guys. It should be neater than this. I'll try and clean it up a little bit. All right, so let's do password. I think we might need to modify our validator also because password has to be certain length and all those information also. So let's write a different validator method and say public function is strong password. Now, obviously, we can't use a string because really a password might not be a string. It could be anything. It could be special characters and whatever they want. So this validation will not be required for password. But we want to check if it's number one, is the length up to the minimum. Does it have any uppercase? Does it have any numbers? Does it have at least one special character? So we just want to want to check all of this. So let's decide the parameters we are going to be using. Obviously, we need the password that is going to be tested, and then we need the field like we've been doing for the rest. And now we need the count, the minimum. I'm going to call this minimum, by the way. I don't like the word count anymore. I have count here somewhere also. Let's change that to minimum. There we go. Minimum. All right, cool. I'll close this so we have things a bit cleaner. Let's close all of this. All right, so we have that. Now we also Does it have any uppercase? So this would be a Boolean, check upper. So this is like saying, are we interested in checking uppercase? Yes. By default, yes, we would be checking that the password that they've given us has uppercase by default. We'll also be checking lowercase. By default, we'll be checking, oh my bad, we should be check lower, not, you know. Okay. Check special, I guess. Yeah. So yeah. So if by default all of these are true, but we can set them false if we want. Okay. So let's start with the length, the easy one. Um, first, so let's see. The best way we can do this would be to start with a pass. So we call false. Just bear with me as I think my way through writing this. So we have saying by default it doesn't pass, and say return pass. Pass. Yeah. Now let's make a couple of helper functions, helper methods in here. Private function is, should we make it public? Let's make it public. We can use the outside also. Public function has lowercase. Okay. So this is for checking if a string has lowercase, in which case we have to make sure that it's actually a string, must be a string, and cannot be a integer or whatever. So we need the actual string in here. Okay, that's one helper function. Another one we can do is function as uppercase, I guess. Okay, basically the same thing we'll be doing. And then public function has special char. There we go. By default, obviously, I like saying by default it returns false. Return false, else e. That is spelling of false. And by default, this returns false. If you have any questions, just call my attention and I would pause and respond. Um, for those who didn't join us last time, I'm just basically walking through this project, showing you how I think my way through things. Hopefully, you can pick up a couple of things as we do that. All right, so let's check the minimum. So past is equal to the length of the password, star length password. So at this point, we are sort of, so we can get rid of this now. Okay. Inline variable, yeah, that's fine. It's okay. Don't worry, you'll be fine. Okay. Right. So next thing we want to check is, does it have any uppercase in there? How do we check that? I think, okay, let me do a bit of Google searching. Check if string has uppercase PHP. Yeah, I'd rather do this. There we go. So it seems quite easy. Hopefully that will work. Ah, no, we don't want to check. Okay, so you see, it says it's checking if all the characters in the string has uppercase. So we could use that function. Let me show you how we could use it. We could split this particular guy into an array. And no, that's lowercase. Let's do uppercase first. So this is the function here. Instead of passing the entire string in here, obviously we don't want to check the entire string if everything there is uppercase. We could look through individual characters in the string and check if they are uppercase. So that's one way to do it. But let's see if there's another method out there that would help us to just check if there's any uppercase at all. That's what this person is doing here, which is, fine. But check if after characters, check if lowercase characters, set local, check if core point. Yeah, so I think that's all we have to do for now. So we look through each individual characters in the string and check if it's uppercase. If it's uppercase, if there's if okay, if there is uppercase at all, then we say yes. If there is no uppercase at all, we say no. Okay, cool. That's fine. So let's say for each, now I don't remember if I need to, I don't need the key, by the way. If I need to, split this into an array, but we'll try it this way, then we'll see if it works. If it doesn't work, then we'll split it into an array. Because in Python, or in some other language, you could just do this and it will break it down, which I don't think it will work here. I'll not waste time on like that. So I'll do the thing that I'm sure will work. Let's explode it. No space at all. And then put string in there. All right, good. Yep. So exploding this. So after exploding it, we will then remove any null values. I'll show you why that is important just in a minute. So array filter string. All right, so let me quickly show you what I'm trying to do here can I use my helper here? Extend helper. I think I can. Okay, I can. So let's go in here and do this dd of string. Cool. So I'll do a dd before I even got to removing this guy. And then I'll come back here, just a side, like a side quest. I'll come up here and say string will be equal to password. And then say validator is has uppercase, sorry. So as uppercase string, and I will assign this to something and then print that out. So helper dd something, I guess. All right, cool. So let's run the code. It won't get, it won't get here at all, but I think there's an error here, so I don't want to have any issues with that. I will just take that out. So it won't get to all these places, to just stop here. Because remember, at the DD point, we said exit after you're done printing it out. All right, so let's run this code, see what we get. Okay, as usual, as you would expect. Validator, okay, sorry, I forgot to add that here. Use helper, I guess. Helper not found in this, blah, blah, blah. That's still the problem. I don't understand why it's not extending it. I should definitely be able to extend it. Let's see, and it's the same namespace, so I should not need to do that. Okay, you know what? I'm going to test something else. I'm going to move all of you guys in the app folder. Then I'm going to try something now. Okay, then I need to do this. What a load. Oh, yeah, so that's not the problem. Cool. So now it says you can't even find it at all because that's not loading. Cool, cool, cool. Okay, let's move it all back out. Delete this and try to figure out why that's not working. But before I do that, I could just keep that and not take too much time trying to figure that out. So I could set a public helper parameter here and then create a new one. So I would not need to extend this anymore. I will still need to use the helper there, and then this becomes this helper dd. All right, let's see if that works. Okay, that's still not working. Okay, yeah, it's fine now. A different error. So explode cannot be an empty. Whoa, is empty. What? Oh, sorry, should be a space. Yeah, that won't work. That would not work at all. But it's just going to do this. That's not what I want. I want it to explode without any space. So Let's see. Bring str replace. Yep. So I'm going to replace this with this and then this. And then I'm going to try that again. Explode, blah, blah, blah. Are you kidding me? Let's see what this gives me. Alpha PD string. What does this give me? So this gives me, doesn't even do anything at all. So I'm searching for, uh, okay, let's do a bit of convert string to array PHP. Is somebody giving me hints there? Oh, you're lost? That's not a hint. It's okay. Um, just 1 minute. I'll respond to your question now. That's not what I want. Explode. There we go. Right. Explode. Cannot be without a space. Needs to have a space. Okay. Right. So explode would work for words, not for a single string. Okay, which is fine. But let's see what happens when I do a for each. Actually, I'll do a for loop. Could that person, could you please turn off your video? It's getting in the way of the, okay, see what happens when I do this. Yeah, all right, that's fine then. Okay, so somebody said, okay, so I will do my best to upload those videos over the weekend. Oh, we're in the weekend already. So I'll do my best to upload it that today or tomorrow because I've not uploaded them because I need to do some editing. Um, I've not uploaded them because I need to do some editing. And yeah, once I do the editing, I'll upload them. Hopefully that can help you a little bit. Okay. All right. So I'm going to look through. So for pi is 0, blah, blah, blah. So for each character in the string, I want to check if it is uppercase. That's basically what this is. So if any one of them is uppercase, then this is true. Oh, I can replace it. That would be great. What? Does not loop. What am I missing? I could just do think and then dot, 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 and then see what happens when I do this. Oh, right. Okay. I see what that. Okay. That's fine. Yeah, this is fine. This is fine. And this is fine. Okay. So what we're doing is we are going through. Yeah, this would always return. Yeah. So we need to um I'll continue. I'll need that variable apparently. Fast. I'll need that variable. Wait, do I have the variable somewhere else? Yeah, I do have it somewhere else. Um, okay. So if it is uppercase, we are going to return true. Okay, so we are looping through the string and then checking if each of the characters in the string is uppercase. If any character in the string is uppercase, we are going to return true. If this loop continues and finishes and none of them is uppercase, then it's going to be false. All right, we'll try it out now here. So we are looping through it and checking it's uppercase. The first character is uppercase. That's not a good example. So let's go here and try this. Okay, so returns true. And let's try without that. Returns false because there is no uppercase in there. Okay, so I guess, checking the uppercase thing works now. So we can get rid of that. We can then go back to what we've been working on. I'm being blocked by Zoom again. Zoom needs to find a way to fix this. Okay, so I can go back to my validator and try and have the other functions that I need to work on. So uppercase works. We just copy that and use it for lowercase. And this seems like a very silly thing to do. See type lower. It seems like a silly thing to do. I think, okay, probably let's write a function that will just do this to not having to is 5 would be lower. So we just, I want to have a single function that does this two instead of using, so it doesn't make sense to, let's return match, match 5, no, 5. And if it is lower, we return is has lower. Okay. If it is upper, we return this have upper. And by default, return false. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the match method before, but I really, really do like using it. Optional parameter should come later. Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's put that in there. Okay, so instead of having to call this everywhere and call this also, I have just one function that just does that for me. Okay, let's return Boolean here and Boolean here. Yeah, I think this is good to go in terms of uppercase or lowercase. Now to check if there are any special characters. I think I saw one earlier, C type. Alphanumeric. Alpha. Yeah, I'm going to do a bit of Google searching and say PHP check if string has special characters. Okay. I don't care about you. I don't care about you. I care about you. Good. Okay. So that means it's equal to given substring. No, this is not what I want. I mean, we could use this, by the way. We could define the specific special characters that we want to see. Okay. Yeah, we could define the special character that we want to see. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, let's do that. Specials. Let's call them specials and say something like this, this, this. You know what? I'm adding that. This, and this. Okay. Okay, those are our special characters, which can then be defined by the user that is using this method. So return String contains special characters. So this will return a Boolean statement. I don't know if this will work, but I'll test it now and see if it works. All right, back to our index page. We have updated our validator with some more methods, which does make sense. We've not finished the password validation, but honestly, I would say we are done with it because we have everything that we need to properly validate the password. So let's just test the last one we created now and say test equals to validator. What was the last one we created? Special characters. There we go. And then Mike or something. Okay. What does that give us? Helper ed test. Let's run that code. This my terminal is way too big. Anyway. Okay, so this gives me false because it doesn't contain any of those characters. But let's add one of it and save the code and refresh it. And it's still false. So I guess this isn't what we want. Let's see if it's actually the right thing that's coming out. Yeah, it is the right thing. Yeah. So it's still false. False. It's not doing what we expect it to do. This should be true. All right. So I will go back to documentation and see what I missed. So the A stack, which is the string, and then the needle, determines the case sensitive check indicating if needle is contained in A stack. Yeah, my brother, that's what we do every day. That's why I'm doing this class, so you can sort of just hopefully learn from all of the mistakes I'm making. We could use any of these functions, so I would just do a bit. I'll go through. Yeah, I think I'll rather use this, by the way. Okay, let's see. Convert special character. No, we don't want to convert anything. We just want to check if it exists. All right, I have a code I've written before. I'm going to copy it out and use it again. I have a I was working on this morning. Let's close all of this. Let's look for string service. String service. There we go. I wrote the code. When did I write it? I wrote it in April. Yeah, I created this class in April, so it should still be fine. I wrote the service in April. Let's look for remove spaces, remove special characters. There we go. So yeah, this will work. This is what I need. By the way, I don't know if there are people out there who are able to write regist very easily. I just use a tool that allows me to sort of um no, I want to match, not replace. Match, I'm not replacing, I'm matching. So I just use online resources to sort of check if no, I don't need this anymore. Okay, and I don't need this. I use online. I keep forgetting what I was talking about. I use online resources to, and I don't need this. I don't need that because that's Hypersun. Yeah, let's test this and see what happens. Okay, finally, I use online resources to help me. So it has special character. Let's go and change it so it doesn't have special character to help me write regex or regex or whatever they call it. And it's still true. That's not what I want. So this is just checking for string. Where is the other code again? Did I close it? No, I did not. Okay, remove special characters. Replace it with this. Oh yeah. Oh my. That was my problem. Okay. False. Fingers crossed. If I had a special character in there. Oh, still false. Oh my God. Okay. See what I have. Remove numbers, remove other non-numeric characters. Array space, feedback, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Let's go back to Google. PHP check if string contains special characters. Wait, this. Yeah, I know. I just needed to write the actual thing for me. Um, wait. Okay, so this is what we need. This is the thing that we need. Let's try this, which I think I had. I just didn't use it. I don't know why I missed it. Okay, let's try that. Index is true. Do I have a special character in there? I do. Let's remove the special character. Now it's false. Okay, cool. That works. Let's add multiple of them, and just to be sure that everything still works properly. Yep, works. Let's add some words at the end. Okay, cool. That works. So that's what we need to validate the password. We've just successfully spent like how many minutes trying to figure out how to validate the password, but it works. So now we can come back to the strong password method and apply the helper function that we've just created to that method. So firstly, we are checking is the minimum character of password whatever met. If it is not met, there is no point in proceeding. We could stop it from here and return false. So we could do a check if if this is not met, um, if this is met, we want to proceed. If this is met, we want to return false. Right? So this is the length of the password they provided. If it is greater than the minimum, then we return false. But do we need to return false? I think we need to return a more reasonable error message like we've been doing before. So we have to do this and say here and say the field, the password must be, cannot be more than minimum. Okay, cool. So we're checking if the password is more than the minimum required length of password. If it is more than, should it, okay, I think we should return this error if it is less than the minimum, not if it is more than the minimum. If it is less than the minimum, because we're not talking about maximum, we're saying minimum. Okay. This cannot be less than the minimum. Cool. So the minimum password length is 10. That's fine. Okay. So the next thing we want to check is if this has uppercase, has special characters, and so we could do this together, or we could split it. I think I'd rather split it so we can produce proper error messages to the user. So let's split it. So we would then say, firstly, we say, does it has uppercase characters, string? What else do I need to set in here? Do I need to set anything? Nothing else. That's fine. Oh, by the way, I shouldn't use that. I should use this one. Okay, cool. So I could use that and say is lower. Okay. So if the password contains lowercase and is upper. Should it be is? Should be as? Should be as, not is. So let's change that to as. So if it has uppercase, lowercase, yeah, that's fine. So if it has uppercase, if it has lowercase, and it has lowercase, that means it's true, it's fine. The password is fine. And so I said I wanted to split it. So if this statement is not true, we would give them an error message and say the field must have contain at least one lowercase character. And again, copy this and say upper password must have at least one uppercase character. Okay. And then finally, we do the last check. We say this as special character, right? Is that less than? Yeah, it is. So password, the field must contain at least one special. So by doing this, we are sort of giving and then return true at the end. So all of these things are checking and checking. If none of them is returning false, then we return true at the end. So we are giving out proper error messages to the user, so they know what is wrong with their password, they know what to fix, and they can always do that. Okay. So we've defined the password validation thing. We've defined the things that help us to validate the password, and they can be used for other things also. We defined has lowercase, we defined has uppercase, and then we did a special character thing. Okay, cool. So our validation is sort of looking nice. We'll go back to the index file, and now we want to finish this up and say, okay, his strong password. That's what we've been trying to do since. Also, we have to define the things we want to check for. So in this case, I'm going to split it down a little bit and also label each of them. I'll say password and say field and say, what's the next thing? I think it's, let's check. Minimum count and say minimum. Let's make it 15. And then what else are we doing? Yep. Check uppercase is true. Check lowercase is also, well, if it's going to be true, then there's no point in defining it. So we'll start by checking everything is true. Okay. So what we are doing here is we're checking if the password the user assigns to us in the post request, if it is strong password based on the parameters that we have set here. We have said the password has to be minimum of a specific character, character count. We have also said that it should be at least one uppercase, one lowercase, and at least one special character in there for the password to truly pass. Okay, and that's it. That's the last thing. Password is the last thing. Okay, cool. So now we are checking if there is any errors. If there are no errors, if there are errors, just print it out. If there are no errors, go ahead and create the new user. So for now, I'm just going to be printing out the new user. Yeah, then the last thing I'll do is to we'll add the user to database, which is like a file, by the way. Person. Oh, we've not created the user. Okay, so let's create the user and say person to be equal to user, new user, and then pass the parameters in there, which is ready data. Okay, I know what the error is. I was thinking I'll be able to avoid fixing it. Yep, there we go. Okay, cool. Okay. Right, let's go over what we've done again. We've defined a couple of classes. The helper function, the helper class is just for helping us sort of debug our system. The validator is to validate information. The user has sent us a post request. Okay. which we are sort of mimicking here, we have prepared another variable to keep the validated information. And then we are now validating each of the things they've sent to us and making sure they meet the criteria that we have set for each of them. If they meet those criteria, we are going to print this out. If they don't meet it, we are going to print out the error messages. Fingers crossed, everything works well. So let's try this out. I expect to see some error message. Okay, the password cannot be less than 15 characters. That's a reasonable error message. So let's go back and add the proper password now. 15 characters. That should be fine. Try that again. The password must contain at least one lowercase. Well, it does have lowercases though. I think there's a problem with our error message. Let's see. Uh, has one lowercase. Lowercase. Yeah, it does have lowercase. I don't know what your problem is. Has lowercase. C type lower. If it contains any lowercase, then return true. Okay, let's test that out separately. Let's add the validator. Test equal to validator as lower, and then use this guy here. Okay, let's print that out and see what that gives us. So this is false. Well, that's not true. It should be true. So we need to fix that. Okay, let's see if we can fix that. Go back here. Go back to lowercase function. It says if this is lowercase, return true. If it's not lowercase, return false. Okay. I'm going to see if I don't think I get in here at all. So let's print out each of the characters. See why it's not working. Why am I printing out each of the characters? All right, I'll just try that. Okay, you know what I would do? I would add the one uppercase in there. Yeah, so that's, I need to find out if this actually does what I think it does. So let's go to php.net and search for this. It says check for lowercase characters. Check if all the characters in the provided string are lowercase letters. Yeah, that's what we're doing. Okay, maybe um maybe the problem is this guy. Maybe the problem is, wait, what? Am I not using it? Yes, I am. Like it's not even getting here at all. It's not going inside at all. Okay. Okay. It's not going inside at all. Let's see. Right. So I'm returning Boolean here. I need to do it from here. Okay. Let's do it from here. Sorry, guys. Just keep watching as I try to figure my way around all the issues I'm having. So it prints out lower. Ooh, why does it print out lower? String print out lower. String. Why is it printing out lower? I didn't pass lower in there. Oh, I did. I did. That's my fault. Okay, I see my fault now. Okay, so this should go first, not the type. All right, cool. Try that again. Print out the password. Cool. All right, so that prints it out. We can then leave this now. Ooh. You don't know what the issue is. Oh, okay. So as you hopefully know by now, we are trying to validate the password and check that it's a strong password. We have set the criteria for the password to be considered strong. We have said, if you look at the pop-up here, we have said the password should meet all these things that have been set here. Number one, it should have at least one uppercase, should have at least one lowercase, should have at least one special character, and should be at least 10 characters, all together. So when we pass the password that was sent by the user, which at the moment is this, so the validator function, we expect this password to fail, but our expectation is that it fails because it doesn't have any uppercase characters and it doesn't have any special characters. But right now it's failing and telling us it doesn't have any lowercase characters, which is not true because it does have lowercase characters. So all I'm doing is to try and figure out why this function, a strong password function, is returning the wrong error message. It's returning this error message instead of this one. And I think I just found out why. It's because we are not passing the right thing here. We need to switch this way. I think that is why that was happening. So that's what I was trying to figure out. I was trying to figure out why it was giving us the wrong error message. That's what I was trying to do. Okay, but I think we figured it out now. The problem was I was having the type as the first parameter instead of the password as the first parameter. So that was probably the problem. So I'll test it now. And I do get that some people feel like I'm moving a bit too fast. But again, I'm not going to give you any assignment regarding any of the things I'm doing. This is just me working the way I normally work, and just hopefully you learn from the mistakes I'm making, the way I'm debugging, and you can apply that as you proceed in your own projects. All right, so I think we have a printed how to help us somewhere that we have not taken out, which is why it's printing out the password instead of actually doing what we want. So let's go back and yeah, there we go. This is the helper here. Okay, that was the helper. So we'll run this code now. Let's clear our terminal and run the code again. Yeah, so now, like I mentioned, the expected error message that I expected to get is that I should get at least one uppercase. I should have at least one uppercase in my password. So if I had the uppercase now, and I expect a different error, which is that I should have at least one special character. So it's like you've already thought about what could go wrong. You've captured the situation. You've produced the proper error message for the user. And now when the thing goes wrong, the user knows what is wrong and they can fix it. Basically, that's right. So we have been able to validate the user information. If when there was an error, it told us the error message. When there is no error, we can then say, yeah, user created. And here is a new user that was created for you person. Yep. So let's run the code again and see what happens. Yep. So the new user was created, and now this is the user that was created. So this is the information that you then send to the database. The information that you have validated, you have done everything you want to do to make sure you have done everything to make sure the user is not trying to destroy your system with malicious data they have sent to you. And now you can send this ready information that you have prepared by yourself. You can send it to the database and save that in the database and tell them that user has been created successfully. In our own case, I don't know if I have enough time. I don't know how long this class is supposed to be, but I'll just see if I can quickly set that up if we don't run into any more bad problems. So let's just sort of set up a DB instance, which I would create up here. New database. Let's create the class. Database. Okay, so we created the class. It's a file. We are using a file system, so nothing to worry about. I create a private function, make file, and then this will just new file. Do I even need to do this? I don't. So let's use the actual database method to do it. Public function create. So what are we creating? We are creating type, a new user, and then we are now passing data into it. So data is required, user is optional. Okay, cool. So let's move this here. All right. So yeah, that's all. I think that's all we want to do. We don't need this. Or not, do we? Well, okay. So let me tell you what I'm thinking, because sometimes I think I don't talk. We could set the type here from here instead of having it in individual thing here. Yeah, we could set the type here. So the type becomes available here. Basically, the type is going to help us to decide where we want. It's like going to define the table. You know what? Let's call it table. It's like defining the table we want to save this information in, or the table we want to search from. So whenever you interact with the database, you would always need to specify the table you want to work with. That's the limitation we have added here. Database class requires at least a table to interact with. This database class cannot interact with multiple tables at the same time and does not support joins. Okay, let's just put that out there so everybody knows what they are doing with it. All right, so we are going to create a new folder. Create new check if the user folder exists. If the table folder exists of the user, create the folder if it doesn't, and then create new file or new record in the folder and the table. Okay, so this is what the create is going to be. It's going to be checking does the thing exist. If it doesn't exist, then it's going to create it. Okay, cool. There are a couple of methods you can use in creating. Let's close this project. A couple of methods you can use to create files in PHP. So create new folder file, not folder file. I'm a fan of firstly going to the, what is it called? Um, Official documentation. So folder, or let's say table. If just bear with me a little bit. The what's that thing called? Check if folder exists. Forgotten what it's called, but I know so there we go. So is there. So it's going to be inside DB and this needs to be. So it's going to be inside DB and then it's going to be table. This table. Okay. If it doesn't exist, okay, then we create it, right? MK PL. There we go. MKPL. So let me explain what we are doing. We are checking if the table already exists, which, in this case, the table is just a folder. So if the table has been created before, we don't do anything. If it has not been created, then we create the table. Okay, the next thing we said we'll be doing is create a new file inside the table. And we already saw this particular function here. Okay, we're just going to be creating a new file inside the table. So the unique identifier for each user is what we are going to be using to save the file. In our own case, it's going to be data and it's going to be email. So we'll say data, email. Yep. So let me try and explain what this is. Or delete all of this. So our database is a file system, nothing serious, nothing complex. We are passing a table in there. Let's see, I think this should be read only. Yeah, I did pass this. I already did. I don't know what's wrong with it. Okay, we are passing a table in the database class and saying, anytime you want to use database, you have to tell us which table you want to work with. Okay. And then we have just one single function or method inside the table database class right now. We are using that method to check if the table that we are trying to work with is available. If it's not available, we create that table. This might be a bad idea, by the way, because what if somebody just tries to use a random table? That means we create a table every time. I don't know if that's a good idea, but we'll do it this way for now. And then once we create the table, we will then create the file inside the table. And we use the person's email address to save the file. You could do other things here. You could say just if there is no email address in there, we could return an error and say invalid user data sent, something like if empty data email. That means they didn't send us email address. If they don't, we need their email address to be able to save the information they've given to us. If they don't give us email address, we have to tell them return, some error happened, something like that, just so that we can sort of keep things to an extent. And after we've done this, we will then return user created. So it's hopefully simple enough. So we've created a database class. We've received input from the user. We have sort of validated the input with this very crude validation that we've worked on. We have checked if there are any errors. If there are no errors, we go on to create the user. If there are errors, we print out the error and stop the entire process. If there are no errors, we create a new user, which is then sent to our DB, and we're using okay, so we need to define the table here. And by the way, the default table is user, so I don't think I need to define it. So I'll just keep going and say create a new user with the person parameter. And we can delete this. And then response will be equal to this. And when the user is created, we want to produce the response that was given to us by the database. Okay. Fingers crossed. Let's try the code. Clear. Run the code. Uncaught exception. Database not found. Yeah. Hopefully we can fix that. Have a new database. We have database imported here. Oh yeah, we need to. Yeah, there's a way to fix that, but I'm just sort of database because I feel like I'm already complicating matters. I don't want to composer install, composer, composer load. Now let's try it again. Okay, still an error. It says make directory, no such file, blah blah blah, found. No such file or directory. Okay, Let's go back. Same error. Right. One way to do it is to just create the tables that we need. So I'll create a folder in here because in the real sense, that function was not supposed to be, you can't just create a table because somebody tried to access a table that doesn't exist. Yeah, then I'll create a user. Okay, then I'll create a user directory. And then I'll try the code again. Wait, am I still getting an error? It says uncut cannot use object of type user as an array. Okay, where is it? Oh, oh, my bad. Sorry about that. Okay, so what is happening now is here we are sending user object, okay, to the create method, which is this guy. And now when we try to get the email, we are trying to use the user object as an array, which is not true because it's not an array. So we need to use this to get the email from the user object. Okay, let's delete this. Try it again. Another error, I guess. Can I use it? Okay, where? Line 20. Oh, this guy also needs to be checked. Email. In which case we could say objects as property exists. We'll use this. Yeah. So now we are checking if the email exists in the user object. So I'll call this user so it doesn't keep confusing. Actually, it's not user. Yeah, it's just data. Okay, so let's try it again. Clear this and run the code. Some error happened. The problem is we didn't. So if the property doesn't exist, then we say this. If it exists, we keep going. Okay, cool. All right, so file inputs is fail to open stream, no such file, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, this is the problem. I need to have a slash here. Okay. Okay, let's clear this. Let's try again. User created successfully. If I check my folder, I can find the user has been actually created inside the folder. Okay, so let's try to create a new user just to sort of test things a little bit. So another user comes and says, look, I want to create an account. This is my first name. This is my email address, which is obviously invalid. This is my phone number and my age is that. Do we have a minimum for age? We do. Okay, so I'm going to say my age is 14 and my password is obviously not good enough. All right, so let's see if everything is working properly now. Just run the code again. Clear this. Run the code. So we've got the email must be valid email address. The password must be at least 15 characters. Those are the two errors that we have right now. Let's change that. By the way, I should have added it. What is it called here? Last name there. Yeah, sorry. Okay, so let's try this again. The error that remains now is the password error that says it must be 15 characters long. If we decide that, okay, now I want to accept anything, something less than 15 characters, we could potentially come here and say, okay, 5 is fine. And which means password should pass regarding the length of the password, but obviously for the other things, it will not pass. Okay, so it must have at least one uppercase character and must have one lowercase, everything is lowercase, and one special character. There we go. Okay, so everything should pass now, and we should be able to create a new user, but I want to use Mike as my email address. And oh, that failed. What must be of type? Age must be an integer. What? So what did I send to you if it's not an integer? Okay, let's see what that problem is. This is why we keep testing things, right? So, oh, the minimum age thing. Yeah, we didn't catch the error properly. We should have done this like we are doing for the rest. Okay, this is what we should have done. And this would have to be an if statement. So return true, otherwise do this. Must be at least minimum. Okay, so this gives the error. The problem is, no, I don't want that to happen. I want to say if not, return false. Okay, I think this is better. And else here also, actually, okay, no, we already have what we need. Yeah, I think that's what we need right there. Yep, user has been created. User has been created. Yep, so that's how I apply most of this, object-oriented programming concepts in PHP. Obviously, this is not an actual application I'm building because there are so many problems with it that even I can already catch. Without the user using it, I can already tell you that this is a very poor way of implementing things. And this is why we usually go with using frameworks to make things much easier for you, make things more secure for your users and for whoever is the owner of the project, and so on and so forth. So one final thing that I prefer to do on projects is to add comments on methods like this. And my comments are usually something like, apart from defining all of this, I also mention things like check, validate, see if string is valid. So the reason why I use keywords like this is because when you work on a large team, sometimes people are looking for functions or methods and they don't know what you've called it. They just think of what you might have called it. So if somebody wants to look for how to check, how to validate if something is a string, they might not know you called it a string. They might just be thinking check string or check. And then, when you use the keywords like this, like I have used up here, I guess like I've used up here, when they are searching the entire project, it makes it easier for them to find the methods that you've created. So I always prefer to add that up there. Yeah, I will leave the rest for you guys to go add it if you want to. But that's how I prefer to add the comments on the projects. And this should be returning a Boolean. Yep. Yep. All right. So that's really all I wanted to show you how I use OOP to work on projects.